Hello everybody. Alright, so today I've got a couple of rulers floating around here that don't really have a home. They don't fit in my ruler book, which is sitting right here, and I've been using all of these quite a bit lately. So what I have done is I have taken and I've done some measurements here. This is my hexagon ruler, and at its widest point, it's about 6 inches wide. So that means it's also 6 inches tall. And I want to make a holder that will hold this, that 4-inch square ruler, 4.5-inch square, and my tumbler block. Then I have a couple of other rulers that are tall and skinny. And I also have some smaller rulers floating around here that I would like to be able to hold also. They're things that I'm using a lot right now and don't want to put back in the book. So what I've done is after I measured them, I went back over to my scraps that are on my table behind me, which is why you're getting a narrow view of my room right now. And I also found a piece of its cardstock, and my cardstock is almost 7 inches wide and a little more than 10 inches tall. This is those cardboard that people use. They're cardboard magazine holders that people use to hold bolts of fabric. I have a whole stack of them here, and I'm not using them to hold bolts of fabric right now. So I thought what I would do is use that to be the stable part of the back of my ruler holder. And then I thought to myself, well, I would like to be able to see what rulers are in that pocket at each point. So I went to my handy dandy shower curtain. One shower curtain will give you enough plastic to make a ton of these. And I just happen to have it sitting here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up somewhat straight. And I'm going to cut 2 8-inch wide pieces by whatever the length of this is. I'm going to use my rotary cutter to cut it. I guess I'm actually only cutting one right now because they're still attached together, but I'm going to fold them in half. And to cut this is almost the same as cutting anything else. And I'm going to cut them 8.5 inches wide. This just happens to be a piece that was chunkied off the edge earlier. And I'm not throwing this piece away. It's still got some possible use in it. I'm doing 8 inches wide. I want one of them to be 6 inches tall. So I'm going to fold it over here. So that it's straight and I can do a 6-inch cut. And yes, I'm using my regular rotary cutter to do this. And I'm mostly doing this by guesswork. I know that the other rulers that I would like to store on here are roughly 4 inches tall for the tallest one. So I want to make sure that they'll stay here. Can you see? There we go. Get you back where you can see. Another piece I can put in the scrap pile. Alright, and then I know that both sides of my backing piece are going to be black. And I do want to put some binding along the edge of that plastic. So I've got some white fabric here that is longer than these are wide. And I'm going to cut myself an 8-inch piece that is 2 inches wide. And I'm going to need a handle, but I think I'm going to cut that when I'm done here. And these fabrics, the white, happens to have a ton of starch in it because it was what I was using for another block that I had starched heavily. So I'm just going to fold in my edges and finger press it down. And make myself a little trim for along the edges of my plastic. And the plastic can't be ironed anyway, so I'm kind of trying to avoid turning on the iron. I don't want to accidentally melt shower curtain all over my iron. And I will probably, because I'll get the iron and I'll think, oh, that's all wrinkly. And then, oops. Well, I'll smell the smell of burning plastic. You guys won't. But it won't be fun for me. Okay, so now that I've got those two cut and folded, and see how well that starch holds that in there? I'm going to take these two pieces of plastic. They're going to get wrinkled anyway, so I'm not super worried about it. I'm going to make sure that my bottom edges match, or my edges match. Come here. And I have clips over here, so let's put our clips along the bottom edges of the fabric. And I've got my fabric enclosed in there. I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew it. I'm going to lengthen my stitch length to probably a 3. And I'm just going to go right along the edge of the white all the way down so that I can be pretty sure that I have gotten all of that plastic inside the fabric at one time, but I don't have enough clips sitting on my desk right now to do that. So let's just do this quick little stitch. I'm not worrying about back stitching on this because I'm going to stitch the sides into the rest of the bag. So there's one part done. Let's do the other. So again, I'm matching up the bottom edges of the plastic. Might be easier to do it the other way, but My brain is telling me to do it this way. And since I'm making it up as I go along, we get to do what my brain says. How's that? If you decide to make one of these and your mind thinks it should be done differently, feel free to do it that way. I am not the project police. And I think what got it earlier was that I've got my starch bottle sitting there. Okay, so there's my two little pockets. I want to line them up here. I'm going to start about an inch down for that one. And I'm going to baste both of my pockets onto this back piece. Gets onto this front piece. There is a method to my madness. And what that is once I have these basted onto here, then when I get ready to sew the two pieces together so that I can flip them out, this plastic won't move. And I can follow the stitch line. Once again, it's just how my brain is telling me to do it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go down the sides, that same long stitch length that I used before. It's working, so I'm just gonna keep going. If I were doing a huge project, lots of plastic pockets, I would go find my Teflon foot and put it on here. This when I sew the next side, it will all be enclosed and I won't have my presser foot running right up against that plastic. And I think I'm going to do a quick stitch across the bottom. I don't want to stitch it more than once because I don't want that pocket to rip. And then I've got that one pinned or clipped, and we're just going to go across the bottom of it. It might have been fine if I had used only one layer of plastic. I didn't really want to take the chance because I've got rulers that have pokey corners. I'd prefer not to have to fight with those rulers. Alright, so now that we have that all sewn together, I'm going to flip it over, and you can see on the back I've got white thread, so I can pretty much tell that my piece of cardstock is going to sit in the middle. So now what I'm going to do, I'll line up my pieces of fabric. And I'm going to use pins, but I'm going to try to stay out of the plastic as much as possible. So see right there, I can see that I've got my binding for my pocket poking out. So I shouldn't be in the plastic if I pin there. It doesn't mean I won't be, it just means I shouldn't be. I'm going to pin my corners together up here at the top. The plastic is not part of that. And then I'm going to pin just above where that pocket starts. Now I'm going to sew down and around, and then I'm going to trim. Make sure that I had everything sewn. Now, whether you pull the basting stitch out or not is your preference. I'm not planning to do it, but I do want to go back over here to the cutting table and show you what I am going to do. And that is, I'm going to go right along the outside of where I did the second stitch and give myself a 3/8 of an inch roughly. It does take some plastic off there. But what I'm getting ready to do is, of course, trim this down and turn it. Tip, especially if you're a new sewer or you're new to using rotary cutters, is don't move your rotary cutter until you're sure that you've gotten the cut that you want. And I'm going to go right down here, and you can see the white stitching, but there's blue stitching inside of it. I'm trimming my corners to the blue stitching, not for the white. I'm not going to trim my corners at the top. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look down inside my bag, and I'm going to find the bottom. I'm going to push the corners in, and the pockets are over here on this side. Boy, my voice is just not cooperating. I sound like a teenage boy. Alright, and we're going to push that one in. I kind of want to grab that corner and gently turn the bag out. Because I don't want to rip my plastic pockets. Put anything in here except my finger to turn these pockets and edges out. was part of my bag. All right, now we see how well we did on measurements. I'm gonna slide, may have to cut my cardboard a little bit. And I will have to cut my cardboard a little bit, it looks like. Let's see. Trying to not have to cut the cardboard. But I am gonna have to. Probably gonna cut an inch off. Maybe a little bit more. So what I've done is I have just tucked my little piece back there. Make sure all my fabric is back out of the way. And turn your heads. I'm gonna have to use my rotary cutter. The blade needs changed anyway, so I'm not gonna sweat it too badly. Okay. What I'm doing now is I'm just turning the top edge down a little bit. So that it will be even all the way around. Or mostly even. Again, I still don't want to get my iron involved because I am afraid that I will melt something. So I'm doing all of this with my uncooperative lovely hands. I don't want to do this. All right, I'm gonna make a little handle, but I just remembered I just got hair ties for specifically things like this. Bought a whole package of them. I think they're cute. Okay, and now I'm going to sew this in. And there's our little hanging bag.